I was 28-year-old when Matthew was born, and I thought, I'm not going to treat you like my dad treated me. I'm going to bring you up different. In Matthew's generation, they were getting softer, more rounded. He was happy-go-lucky and loving. As he went through life, he started suffering with depression, and he suffered with that for over 9 years. In October 2017, Matthew was up in his room. What we didn't know, his depression had come back, and he wasn't telling us. But when he'd been treated for his depression, he didn't tell the doctor. He wasn't always taking his tablets. And I says to him, "How are you feeling?" He says, "All right." I says, "Look, you seem down." During the night, he was on his phone to his girlfriend. I could hear him, and so I checked on him. He says, "I'm okay." So I went back to bed, got up in the morning, on Sunday morning, and me and his mum went downstairs to have his breakfast. Well, because I'd heard him up all night, I didn't bother about it too much, him getting up for breakfast. Went up about 1 o'clock to see if he were getting up, and he was still half asleep. So I shook him. I said, "Are you getting up?" And he goes, tired, and rolled over, went back to sleep. And then about 4 o'clock, his mum was getting dinner ready. She says, "I'll go up and see if he wants any dinner with us." When she went upstairs, his room were all in darkness because blinds were down and lights were off. But she saw a shadow. So she turned around, put the light on, turned back in and screamed. I went dashing upstairs to see what was wrong. And unfortunately, we found that Matthew had taken his own life. The whole team that he worked with said they'd like to go to a funeral. So we gave him the details of when the funeral was. And the undertaker took the hearse and the cars down past where he worked. And then his colleagues walked round to the cemetery where we're having the service. One of his colleagues who'd helped carry his coffin came into where we're having the wake and gave us a remembrance book. The people he worked with had put something in it. How he always made them laugh, and he always sort of brightened the day. No matter what mood he was in, he always had time for others. After the police gave me his phone back, and I noticed that on the internet searches Matthew had been doing was for how to care for people who've suffered bereavement through suicide, which is how I ended up getting in touch with the lead suicide bereavement support. And talking to the other people in the group, we found it easier because they'd gone through similar things and they knew what it was like. So there's no judgment on anybody's part. We all benefit through helping ourselves by helping others. 18 months ago, our vicar told me about his niece having taken her own life, and he was worried about how he and the family could go on and how they could handle it. So I gave him the details of different support groups, the book Inquest, so he could pass it on to his brother, who would obviously have to go through the inquest. I said, hang on to it. That's because there'll be other times in your profession where you may need it. And a few weeks later, he announces, "Do you know, Paul?" He says, "Talking to you made it a bit easier." Losing Matthews made me realise that you lose people in your life. Sometimes it's easy to accept the loss. And I've also learned that different people shoulder grief in different ways. Family can cry at the drop of an hat at the sight of a picture of Matthew, or a song comes on the radio. I feel it. I've not been able to cry. If he hadn't been suffering with his depression, I don't think he would have contemplated what he did.